Welcome all and gather around. It's your guide, Xander McCloud, your host, 103.7 XZSA, Dark Forest Radio. Come and embrace the forest. Welcome back, my loyal listeners, to Dark Forest Radio. Now, I must confess something. In our last gathering, we introduced, or I should say, I introduced how I got to this humble station to become its faithful servant. And as I said in this last gathering, I got that by the university. I must confess that is a lie, and that is not in my character to lie. But I withheld and lied about that because of the truth, and how that truth haunts me. I truly came to this job because of a job board in a refugee camp from the horror that destroyed our lives forever. Trading a known horror for something that is even more terrifying. Come and hear the tale of what truly transpired on the night I decided to quit in what I call the Night of Infamy. The gas station sat on the edge of nowhere, a lonesome outpost on a forgotten highway, clinging to the outskirts of a town like a relic lost in time. Beyond the pumps, the night stretched out wide and endless, barren expanse of cracked asphalt and stale wind, punctuated only by the distant hum of a different world. I never questioned why the pay was so good. $30 an hour for the graveyard shift was an oddity, a reward for enduring solitude and the monotony of cold, flickering neon lights. But I wasn't alone. With me were my brothers, Stu, practical and quietly vigilant, Nick, whose wit belied a hardened core, and Tyler, an ever-impulsive spirit. Together they were united not only by necessity, but by a shared thread of resilience, scraping by in a world that had little left to offer. It wasn't glamorous by any means. It was sacrifice, routine, and sometimes a desperate reprieve from an existence that blurred into gray. Yet, in the stillness of the night, beneath the hum of fluorescent lights and the quiet drone of midnight tunes on the radio, we found trust, and a fragile hope that tomorrow might offer something more. Until that night. The unease had started subtly. Customers began to act strangely, restless figures who muttered in low voices, their eyes darting nervously as they sensed an imminent danger. Words floated in the air, half-heard rumors of violence and chaos. Man, people been acting real strange. Man, I tell you what, I haven't seen so many crazy calls in the EMS center in years. Another guy chimes in, shakily putting a couple dollars on the counter. Shaking breath, sliding his pack of cigarettes. And he says, I ain't seen people act like that since the war. It ain't right. Man, have you heard about all those people on people attacks? Have you noticed that you say man a lot? Man, it's my stick, yo. You're crazy. Initially, I dismissed these mentions as mere urban legend, anxiety born of isolation. Yet, when Stu watched a man tremble violently, failing to reach for a simple pack of gum as it was possessed by unseen forces, doubt began to creep in. Nick coughed before a casual quip, hoping humor might dispel the tension. Tyler's boisterous laugh cackled in the silence. But beneath the laughter lay a tremor of unease none of us could shake off. Then things really started getting worse. All of a sudden, in the middle of our, midnight lo-fi jam, we hear a blaring alarm. Attention, attention. All civilians, please stay inside. This is an order of the government. Shelter in place. Prepare water and food for 72 hours. There have been confirmed reports on a violent outbreak. pulsing through the city. Be aware of any individual who exhibits aggressive and terrifying behavior. Do not come in contact with any of the infected. Repeat, this is not a drill. Shelter in place. And then just that quiet, staticky boom. When reality really began to distort. We all kind of stop what we're doing, just look at each other, wondering what the hell did we just hear? Tyler quoted something famous to us to try and help. In the words of Sarge, we've been bamboozled. Nick, tugging at his collar, slightly damp from the sweat. Man, something ain't right. I'm telling you that. Something ain't right. People act real strange all day. Have you been noticing that, Stewie? Stewie, the group's ever-present clown and moral support. Even he leaned back, his big 6'6", solid Scottish juggernaut build. Oi, it's not good. The air is different. I'm not sure what sickness has fallen over this land. But I'll tell you one thing. Something's going to come bad of this. It will not be good. Tyler, as usual, ever the impatient one, but the stoic observationist of the group. Gently tapping his thumb and his fingers. That tap he always did anytime he really needed to think. Shadows under the harsh fluorescent light stretch, bending in impossible curves that defied logic. The safe harbor we once knew faltered, replaced by a sense of foreboding, as if the building itself braced for calamity. And Tyler's ever-present tap. That tap that never stops. Makes me think. As I open my soda to take a drink. His eyes filled with a desperate vulnerability that only I could sense. A vulnerability that said, something is going to happen. And then, as if carried on the gust of despair by that very thought, a man stumbled in through the door. His breath was ragged. His form betrayed signs of agony. Tableau, torn sleeves, bruised limbs, and a deep, fresh wound etched across his neck. We all looked at it like something we ain't ever seen before. Then you see it. You see the deep, jagged tearing of flesh from his neck. And if looking at it, you could have sworn that was a human bite. We all froze right then and there. We all exhale, truly knowing hell's about to come. Looking back at the man, his eyes filled with desperate vulnerability, met mine. Help me! With a single plea hanging in the stale air, leaving a haunting echo in the silence. Tyler, ever the resourceful, was first to act, hauling the fallen man towards the rear, while Stewie, getting down and pressing trembled fingers against the victim's pale skin. Nick, the ever-watchful one, immediately started shutting doors and locking everything, not only for the encroaching night, but the dread that seemed to seep in with every heartbeat. But as the minutes stretched on, the atmosphere in the gas station changed, thickened with a malignant presence. It wasn't enough for the men to simply be present. The very air seemed to pulse with an expectancy that hinted at something far worse than a bad night shift. We all sit there at the counter with the lights off. Nick casually lights a cigarette. Something's not right, man. Something's not right. He breathed. Inside that dim, uneasy space, every sound was amplified. From the persistent drip of the water faucet to Tyler's ever-present tap. Something in that tap told me hell was coming, and we weren't ready for it. That distant hum of an overworked refrigerator in the background, as always, never did get that damn thing fixed. And even the scratch of a scuffed shoe on the tile became harbingers of looming doom. Seemed like everything we did was amplified. Like our very presence was blood in the water for a pool of sharks. I stepped back, my hands gripping the cold countertop with my pulse sounding like war drums in my ears. The body of old man Jenkins, motionless at first, began to betray subtle signs of life. You glance over and thinking, oh hell no, this is not this is a joke. This is not zombies. What? No. No. Then a twitch of the finger, a flutter of an eyelid, as if the man's form was caught between death and macabre resurrection. Stu? My voice was barely a whisper, laden with disbelief and mounting terror. Stu, naively registering what I was seeing, shook his head slowly. His eyes clouded by a mix of sorrow and unspoken horror. He's nothing. He's gone. Nick exhaled, trying to dispel the creeping dread as he attempted to gain control. Okay. So we called in. He began. Those words were soon drawn out by an unexpected intrusion. The radio had been silent, now burst into life with a sudden spray of static. Then, amid the crackle alarm came a clear, alarming message. Hey, can you hear me? Chill runs down my spine. It's my own voice, pristine, uncorrupted, as if delivered by an apparition from a parallel world. Xander, you need to run. In an instant, the shock rippled throughout the room. Nick spun around, eyes locked onto the speakers as if searching for a phantom culprit. Tyler's jaw tightened and he clutched the tire iron that he had always kept under the counter in case of trouble, as though it might serve as a lifeline. All of a sudden, the overhead lights start to flicker, like the bulbs are growing out, but violently, casting erratic, jittery shadows that danced menacingly on the walls. My breath coming out like scared whispers of a kid afraid in the dark. I reach for my soda. Savoring the sweet momentary relief of it. Then, as if no one was paying attention, the man's body stirred. He jerked. His body's moving in impossible angles, as if pulled by invisible strings. His spine arced with unnatural, fragmented movements as his head turned. Slowly, and that unholy marionette that was his body he began to rise, his mouth opened, stretching wider than any humanly possible gape, revealing an abyss of darkness within that seemed to devour the little light remaining. Then, in an instant, the power completely went out. The entire station plunged into crushing darkness. Outside, the sounds of shuffling figures grew moving towards us, growing louder as something ancient and unyielding approached. Then, all of a sudden, completely off guard, the first wave hits us. Figures just pounding against the glass, violently trying to get in, bloody hands smearing the walls, and just these maws, these open, gaping maws that have a howl that, not a howl, and a moan. It was just. It sent chills down your spine and made your fins clenched up like you were about to fight for your life. And then the first door broke. Figures shambling in, dragging their broken bodies with this insatiable hunger. All you just heard was that gaping maw just open with that hellish scream. I was frozen. I didn't know what to do. Stu reacted first. He shoved me immediately back towards the back room. As the bitten man lunged for him, his unbroken body moving with a natural force. Nick caught the tire iron from Tyler and swung it immediately at his temple, cracking it as brains and matter spray the wall to the left. The figure instantly crumps down as more figures crawl over it in an unyielding, unending dead horde, driven only by hunger. Tyler barely had time to raise the shotgun before they were on them. Crack! The shotgun goes off, killing 3 of the infected, dropping down immediately. Stu tossed me a baseball bat. Swung it with all my might as I cracked another one. One gets on the counter, immediately tries to jump on my older brother Nick. He takes a hammer and cracks it straight through its lower jaw, sending it tumbling over it. And as if on cue, Nick just shouts, "Keep moving! Get to the back!" Every second brought them inches, but the infected kept coming. Tyler's shotgun blasts were deafening inside the gas station. The continuous crack of crowbars from Stu and baseball bats from me, trying desperately to do anything to keep this horde from coming towards us more. Then, as soon as we thought we were hopeless, the idea comes to him. As Xander looks to the stockroom doorways, there was no stopping this tide. We've got to get to higher ground. The gas station had become a trap. Then, at that moment, after Xander's realization, Nick just shouts again, "Get to higher ground! Get up the ladder! We've got to go!" Nick was reloading, but his hands were shaking. Tyler grabbed the shotgun, not even caring to reload it, and swung it like a club. "We're losing ground still," Stu bellowed as he kept swinging his crowbar over and over, trying to get the horde. Xander, myself, I finally shove open the roof access. I just yell, "Move, move, 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 move!" Everyone gets in. Nick and Stu take the crowbar and pop off the ladder so there's no way for the infected to get to us. Tyler and I slammed the lid shut, locking it and collapsing on the roof. We just take a breath. We were on the roof, and in that moment of sweet, temporary satisfaction, we realized we were trapped. But at least we could see. I take open the soda that somehow was still in my pocket and take a drink. And pass it to Tyler and everyone else so we all get something in us. That rooftop was hell. Beneath us, the infected swarmed the gas station, bodies pressed tight against the exterior, desperate to claw their way up. Nick checked his ammo. I got 3 shots left. Stewie leaned over the edge. We can't jump from this height without breaking something. Tyler wiped sweat from his face, breathing hard. We just gotta wait it out. The snarling never stopped. Groaning metal, the shifting shadows, the figures scaling the sides of the building, ragged, unnatural movements, every second felt stretched beyond comprehension. I peered into the distance. No one was coming. And then, if all of a sudden, headlights cutting through the darkness. Nick goes, "Do you see that?" Then, in the midst of despair, a pair of harsh beams sliced through the dark. A military SUV thundered onto the scene. It arrived heralded by a cacophony of screeching tires and an urgent, static-laden transmission. "If you want to live, jump!" There was no time for second guessing. With lethal precision, Stu vaulted from the rooftop, performing a role that blended desperation with determined athleticism. Nick was right behind him, while Tyler, paralyzed with terror for a heartbeat too long, was snatched from the brink by me as I gripped his shoulder and I shoved us both off the edge and crashed onto the rear of the SUV as if thrown by the very hand of fate. Inside the cramped vehicle, the atmosphere was suffocated with panic and adrenaline. The dashboard's erratic light played over their faces, a montage of fear and steadfast resolve. For a fleeting moment, the cacophony of outside terror was muted by the confines of metal and a protesting engine. Yet even inside, the threat loomed large. Ragged breasts shuddered against the windows as ghostly silhouettes seemed to claw at the tinted glass. Every jolt over ruined roads, every flash of broken neon hammered home the harsh reality. The escape was as much an eternal battle as a physical one. The SUV roared onward, slicing through the darkness. But the nightmare was unrelenting. The creatures, now infused with an ever-mounting hunger, leaped forward like specters from hell. Their clawed limbs pounded against the vehicle's sides, leaving jagged, lacerated marks as they sought to render metal and spirit alike. The driver's urgent shouts mingled with metallic groans as I fought desperately to maintain control of the failing machine. Meanwhile, Stu and Tyler are out the windows with what remaining bullets we have, pumping every shotgun round that we had into the horde to buy us precious seconds. We barreled through the landscape, transformed into a battleground, and abandoned vehicles twisted into distorted heaps, makeshift barricades buckled under relentless assault, and shattered remnants of a once familiar world sighed like past ghosts. Nick, eyes blazing with cold determination, heaved the shotgun and unleashed precise, thunderous blast, a definite roar in the darkness, each shot carving out a temporary sanctuary, a brief bulwark against the surge of the night. And yet that's all we would hear throughout night was moans, shotgun blasts, moans and shotgun blasts. Tyler's hands, still shaking with raw survival instinct, moved with almost mechanical efficiency in reloading his weapon, always keeping those rounds pumping, always keeping an eye on myself, making sure that the only thing I had to think about right now was keeping that car going with the driver. The narrow road beyond us promised some form of salvation. Then, as if all of a sudden, by fate's very own hand, the engine coughed and sputtered, a tragic counterpoint to our fleeting hope. No, no, keep going! I roared, slamming my fist against the dashboard as if willing more power into the faulting machine. In that tumultuous moment, my gut churned with certainty of the impending loss. We gotta get out and run, now! I commanded. Both a resignation and an act of defiance left no time for further thought. Nick swung the door open with a forceful kick. Tyler clutched the ammo bag and Stu braced himself. In a single desperate heartbeat, they abandoned the dying SUV, a final leap into the uncharted abyss. Every step felt laden with the weight of crumbling world. We had abandoned every single firearm. The ammo bag holding what melee weapons we had. We had no ammo. In a split second, we stop, drop, take out our weapons. Me with my trusty baseball bat. And yet somehow there's a bit of barbed wire, and I look at Tyler, and I chuckle. You think Negan would mind if I copied this Lucille idea? Tyler chuckled. Hell no, brother. Show him how to really move some heads. Stu with his trusty crowbar that looked like a toothpick in his mountain-sized hands. Nick, a good old-fashioned double-handed felon axe. Tyler picked out his old faithful machete that he always kept with us alongside that crowbar. I take out the last bit of remaining coke I've got, open it, and then this brief moment before we run like hell. Cheers, fellas, to the finish line. We all take a sip. Tyler taking the last one and chucking it. And nod. Keep moving was our internal motto. We raced through the streets, hearing constant but erratic gunfire, small pockets of people fighting the very same war we were. We kept moving. That's all we could do was keep moving. We kept moving and kept quiet. Then, as all of a sudden as fate again, we see a horde come at us. That incessant, unending moan. Stewie yells, "Keep moving!" With guttural snarls, they chased after us. We sprinted, never stopping, never moving. Then, what seemed like all help was lost. Nick says at first, "There! I see it!" We all blink and see it. Floodlights and what looks like a barricade. "Move towards it! Move towards it now!" I yell, and we run like hell with that barricade. Tyler immediately taking the machete and lopping it straight into the skull of an infected. Stewie ramming the end of his crowbar into the skull to keep going. Nick chopping off a zombie's head right as it goes sailing through the air. I bringing up the rear, making sure no one swarms us. And in that single moment, we see it open. A gate for all of us just enough to slip in. We hear a voice, "Move it now! Move it now!" We jump through the gate, and as soon as we hit the dirt inside, we hear a resounding metal slam, and then twangs of bows as the few infected that had survived chasing after us were brought down. We all just lay there, briefly realizing that we're alive. For now. Inside the safe zone, a battered fortress of rusted steel and desperate hope, the survivors gathered amidst scattered supplies and flickering candlelight. The wall, marred with faded warnings and blood-stained barricades, whispered grim tales of those who had come before. Some had shown resilience. Others had succumbed to the relentless dread. I exhaled slowly, while gripping the edge of a splintered bench. Beyond the chain metal gates, the city stretched into ruin. Fire-lit towers and collapsing monuments standing as testaments to a civilization undone. The weight of their escape pressed on everyone. Stu paced the perimeter with restless energy, eyes flitting among the survivors as if searching for answers that might not exist. "It's not just the undead," he muttered, low voice and grim. "There's something else out there, something that watches from the shadows." Nick leaned against the cold steel wall, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need more than just weapons. What we face is deeper, darker. If we keep running blind, we're walking into a nightmare from which there is no waking." Tyler pulled his jacket tighter, gazing out at the shattered skyline. "No one's coming to save us. We must forge our own path or let endless dark consume every hope we have." Then, as the static of the radio dissolved into eerie silence, a single message erupted from the speakers.
"We are Legion."
Well, my loyal listeners, our gathering has come to an end. I am forever grateful for your continued support. Know that I will continue this story of how I came to be this station's faithful servant. Till our next gathering, my fellow forest dwellers. As always, come and embrace the forest.